Hello guys, today we will talk about a designer. Paul Rand was born Peretz Rosenbaum on August 15, 1914 in Brooklyn, New York. He embraced design at a very young age, painting signs for his father's grocery store as well as for school events at PS 109. Rand's father did not believe art could provide his son with a sufficient livelihood, and so he required Paul to attend Manhattan's Harran High School while taking night classes at the Pratt Institute. Rand was largely self-taught as a designer, learning about the works of Cassandra and Moholy Nagy from European magazines such as Gebrauchsgrafik. Rand also attended Parsons School of Design and the Art Students League of New York. He almost single-handedly convinced business that design was an effective tool. Anyone designing in the 1950s and 1960s owed much to Rand, who largely made it possible for us to work. He more than anyone else made the profession reputable. We went from being commercial artists to being graphic designers largely on his merits. In his early 20s, he was producing work that began to garner international acclaim, notably his designs on the covers of Direction magazine, which Rand produced for no fee in exchange for full artistic freedom. Among the accolades Rand received were those of Laszlo Moholy Nagy. Among these young Americans, it seems to be that Paul Rand is one of the best and most capable. He is a painter, lecturer, industrial designer, and advertising artist who draws his knowledge and creativeness from the resources of this country. He is an idealist and a realist, using the language of the poet and businessman. He thinks in terms of need and function. He is able to analyze his problems, but his fantasy is boundless. The reputation Rand so rapidly amassed in his prodigious 20s never dissipated. Rather, it only managed to increase through the years as his influential works and writings firmly established him as the eminence grise of his profession. Although Rand was most famous for the corporate logos he created in the 1950s and 1960s, his early work in page design was the initial source of his reputation. In 1936, Rand was given the job of setting the page layout for an Apparel Arts, now GQ, magazine anniversary issue. His remarkable talent for transforming mundane photographs into dynamic compositions, which gave editorial weight to the page, earned Rand a full-time job, as well as an offer to take over as art director for the Esquire Coronet magazines. Initially, Rand refused this offer, claiming that he was not yet at the level the job required, but a year later, he decided to go ahead with it, taking over responsibility for Esquire's fashion pages at the young age of 23. Rand's defining corporate identity was his IBM logo in 1956, which, as Mark Faverman notes, was not just an identity, but a basic design philosophy which permeated corporate consciousness and public awareness. The logo was modified by Rand in 1960. The striped logo was created in 1972. The stripes were introduced as a half-toning technique to make the IBM mark slightly less heavy and more dynamic. Two variations of the striped logo were designed, one with 8 stripes, one with 13 stripes. The bolder mark with 8 stripes was intended as the company's default logo, while the more delicate 13-stripe version was used for situations where a more refined look was required, such as IBM executive stationery and business cards. Rand also designed packaging, marketing materials, and assorted communications for IBM from the late 1950s until the late 1990s, including the well-known IBM poster. Although Ford appointed Rand in the 1960s to redesign their corporate logo, it refused to use his modernized design.